Welcome, everyone, to the Second American Revolution. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Chris Martenson of Peak Prosperity, and I'm here with another scouting report. This has two parts. Obviously, part one out here in the general public, part two for my subscribers back at Peak Prosperity. And those are people who want to know what's going on in the world. And by the way, wow, things are changing incredibly quickly right now. Information is your edge. It's the thing that's going to allow you to surf this avalanche of change that is now upon us. There's no turning back. And it needed to happen anyway. So let me cover all of that. Let's go there. And by the way, I'm going to call this one, I guess, Grapes of Wrath. That'll make sense in just a second. Deep unfairness exposed. All of us are paying for it. Who are paying for it? We absolutely hate it. We hate it. Now, before I go a minute further, let me reiterate for you that I don't operate left-right. I think there's scoundrels on both sides, Democrats, Republicans. I go up-down. And at the bottom, you have that ideological rigidity versus integrity. If you have integrity, it means really, honestly, the deepest form of integrity you can have is to be willing to change your mind at a moment's notice. Now, how is that integrity? Well, because it means that you have such a solid sense of self that you're not attached to the ideas. The ideas don't have you. You have ideas. You are so sure of yourself that it wouldn't matter if it turned out that everything you thought you knew turned out not to be true, because what you care about is truth, because your core is somebody who cares about the truth and knowing what's right. And if you have that as your core, you will develop and advance and become a better and better, wiser and wiser person over the course of your life. Instead, if you have ideological rigidity, then it's going to be a very long and frustrating life. Now, look, I'm also beginning to understand what it must be like to work for Elon Musk, because the whole country is like on his timetable now. They work all weekend long. Gone are the days when you could have a nice weekend off and come Monday morning and the scrum would pick up again. There has been something happening every single day since January 21st, which is the day after the inauguration. All right. I've learned that the way Elon gets ahead is apparently he doesn't sleep, and neither does anybody who works for him. So all weekend long, one astonishing thing, one big revelation, then another. I don't think there hasn't been a single day off since that inauguration, but okay. Well, listen, I said this is the Second American Revolution, and you might think that's hyperbole, but it's not. That's what's taking place right now. It has no precedent in modern history or even within our system structure. We have to go all the way back to 1776. Now, after far too many years of complacency on the part of freedom-loving people, I'll say, among the productive class, the raccoons and scoundrels of the ideological ultra-left, which is, pick your ism, right? Socialism, communism, whatever. It's very totalitarianism. The ideological ultra-left, they executed a complete takeover of our institutions, our major institutions in the government, agencies, all the offices, and especially, unfortunately, our universities as well. Now, they did try similar ESG and DEI takeovers of corporate boardrooms. They gave that a try, but let's just say those were immediately proven to be profit disasters. Bud Light, the woke Disney movies, right? And so those are in the process of being just summarily ejected. But the damage to the young and the impressionable has been extraordinary, with many falling for these leftist ideas and ideals which, under examination, deliver people not to prosperity and happiness, but to a perpetual state of unhappiness, perpetual dissatisfaction, resentments. I mean, you can see it all over their faces if you look at their rallies, right? Now, here's why this is important. And this is one of the things you have to understand about this revolution if you want to skate through it successfully is we are a social creature. And as a social creature, there are certain things that have to be abided by in order for us to have social cohesion, for us to have peace, for us to have harmony. One of the most important things I have ever come across to help explain this is this little 2-minute video by a researcher, a sociological researcher, and I'll take my picture out of there so it doesn't interfere with the size of this thing. But let's just listen in. I hope you love this as much as I do, but I swear to God, you can learn more from this 2.5 minutes about where we are and where we're going and how we should conduct ourselves than you will from 3 semesters of your average college sociology courses. Okay, let me put it on full screen and then we'll hit play.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs and with birds and with chimpanzees, but with Sarah Brosnan we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put 2 capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the 2 monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
All right, it's humorous, but it gets the point across, right? So we need to have, there's 2 twin pillars of a successful, stable society, and fairness and reciprocity. Now, you would understand this at the individual level. If you lived in a family where one person was always taking advantage of the other people, it would be unfair. They wouldn't be engaging in reciprocity. And eventually that would create a lot of frictions. And eventually that leads to some sort of violence, like that person being excommunicated from the family structure, or the family structure breaking apart, or something tragic like that. Now, how does this apply? It applies because what Doge is revealing is an extraordinary, disgusting extent of one class of people feeding themselves grapes and demanding we pay for them, while at best we've been getting cucumbers. And that's what just got exposed. And there's no putting this back in the bottle, because we see it now, and it's gross and it's disgusting. And there are people desperately trying to get that genie back in the bottle. Most of them right now are Democrats, and that's just how it is. But there's, currently, but it's not left right. It doesn't really matter. Just more of them seem to be showing up. You got your Elizabeth Warrens, your Jamie Raskins, you've got your Bernie Sanders, all trying to pretend as if the most horrible thing possible is that young people that Elon has hired might be looking at your sensitive personal data. And what they're really complaining about is that their little free festival of grapes is coming to an end. So that right there, that video, watch it over and over again if you need to till it sinks in. I've seen it 100 times by now, and it still has an impact. I love it because you can see yourself in those poor little monkeys, like, throwing the cucumbers. But once you realize that you've been fed cucumbers while this other monkey doing the same thing has been getting grapes, well, then it creates a resistance. Eventually that monkey's going to give up. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to give rocks to the researcher. I'm not going to pay my taxes. right? These are the kinds of things that revolutions are made of, because those twin pillars of fairness and reciprocity, that's been broken, and it's just been exposed as broken. That's what's actually happening with Musk and Doge. So look at this. Robert Sterling wrote here that Washington, D.C. has the highest median household income in America outside of California's Bay Area. Now, California's Bay Area obviously has lots of tech giants and very highly, highly compensated people doing really profitable things for big businesses. So 121,000 is the median household income in Washington, D.C. Okay, national median is 82,000. So that's 50% more money. Are they people in D.C. 50% more intelligent? Do they do 50% more important things? No, they really don't. He writes here, can anyone explain to me why this is acceptable? It's not. Shake, shake, shake. This is a cucumber moment, right? Because I'm struggling to think of reasons why we should be okay with it. Outside of extracting value from the federal government, transferring taxpayer dollars to GS-15s in the administrative state, and middle managers in the GovCon industrial complex, the Capital Beltway has no meaningful economy. It produces almost nothing of value for the rest of our country, and that is true. It's not a financial center like New York, where you see a $95,000 median household income, Bridgeport, $111,000, Chicago at $87,000, Dallas at $86,000. I'm surprised Bridgeport is that high. It was a dump every time I've been there. It's not the home of any large ports, he writes here, like Baltimore at $94,000, New Orleans at $61,000. It's not a major research hub like Boston or Raleigh. Doesn't even have nice weather like San Diego or Los Angeles or Honolulu. Yet the median household in D.C. makes significantly more than the median of almost any of these major metropolitan areas. Now, so guess what? The system is a racket. And here's what it looks like on a table. You can't read all those things far to the left, but those are cities. And that darkish bar, third from the top, is Washington, D.C. And the reason it's third from the top is those top two are both Bay Area communities. At any rate, there it is. Washington, D.C. has been feeding itself grapes, and they've been making you pay for them. And so we're all a little ticked off about that, right? Robert continues in a comment down below. He said, somehow it's even more offensive when you look at the percent of households making more than $200,000. You really mean to tell me 26% of households in D.C. make that much? And yes, that's the case. Here's an example. I haven't verified that this is true. It cut the sources from V-Bulletin, Inside Biden's Basement. I don't know if it's true, but Mariana Fall reported here that based on those sources, that USAID's ex-USAID's chief, Samantha Power's net worth apparently allegedly has skyrocketed from $6.7 to $30 million in just 3 years on a $180,000 salary. Man, that's a lot of grapes. That's a lot of grapes right there. And when we find out about it, it should be infuriating. You should want to shake the bars of your cage. Hey, pro tip, there are no bars. That's what they're really afraid of. You should, yes, we need to have fairness. It's patently unfair. This lady has just been a swampy creature her whole life. She excels at one thing only, and that's bureaucratically stepping on opponents and crushing people and doing awful things in the name of her party affiliations, which gives her the sinecure of having a very, very highly compensated job with apparently a lot of perks that doesn't actually require a lot of skills to pull off besides bureaucratic, meanness, I'll say. By the way, I watched this video that she did, and I was looking at that, I'm like, that reminds me of somebody. I'm getting an energy off this lady. All right, I saw it. Now you have to, too. You won't be able to unsee it. That's Anthony Hopkins from Silence of the Lambs. At any rate, she is married. What a power couple. Samantha Power is married to somebody named Cass Sunstein, who I know very well. Cass is a Harvard professor, and he desperately, desperately wants to label everybody a conspiracy theorist. Has all these books. I don't know how he has a Harvard professorship, but he's ruining minds there at Harvard. Anybody who takes his class comes away mentally damaged, as far as I'm concerned, because Cass Sunstein has this really crazy worldview, which is that if you dare to criticize the government, you must be a conspiracy theorist, and he proposes all kinds of government retributions and penalties for people who dare to question the government. And of course, he would think that because this is the government that his wife works for that apparently gives you millions and millions of dollars a year somehow, right? They are feasting off of this government corruption. And it's nothing but cucumbers for us and grapes for them. Cass, what an awful couple, those two. So much damage. Or consider this. Here is the current president of the Rockefeller Foundation, big, powerful foundation, who, served as the 16th administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, from 2010 to 15 under Obama. And look at his compensation. Let me say the whole thing out. $1,722,432 with other compensation of $131,051 on top of that. So call it 2, right? Such crazy numbers. Just give him 1.7, but they hide it like, he's in the 75th percentile for people running foundations as large as he is. And here's where it sort of comes in. So look at that feasting. Where's that? How is this guy worth $2 million a year? How? Because he knows how to play this game, and he came from the place where they were just feasting on grapes and funneling it through. So this is a screenshot from one of Data Republicans over on Twitter, at Data Republican, all one word. So here we can see, let me get my quick little lasery tool out here. Here you can see that the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors Incorporated has massive gross receipts of $656 million, takes in huge amounts of taxpayer money, tens of millions of dollars, and then funnels a few off over here to the Hopewell Fund, which gives a couple million down here to Defending Democracy Together Institute, which is Bill Kristol's odious, nasty little thing, supporting another odious, nasty person. Point being, every single one of those boxes has somebody yanking down $1, $2, $3 million because they're worth it, right? And the whole thing is this giant grapey cluster of just people taking our money and handing it out to themselves. And it's totally unfair. And now that we've seen this, you can't unsee it, right? We are angry monkeys now. We're going to throw our cucumber back at the people running this little experiment on us. It's totally unfair. That's what got exposed. These people are not worth that money. All they've done is set up a really complicated system where they're funnelings of monies to each other, and there's arrows and back payments and this is and all that. And it's just, but this is what Elon Musk's team has managed to unearth, right? They've managed to get in there and figure this out because they used an AI tool. The administrative state thought this was all buried. Nobody will ever figure this out. You could have a team of 1,000 PricewaterhouseCoopers in forensic auditors. And a year later, they wouldn't know what they were looking at. But some kids, relatively speaking, young men in their 20s, some of them teens, like big balls, managed to figure out this by just like plugging this all in and letting the machines chew on it and go, here's what this looks like. And it's gross. And now we've seen it. And it's unfair. And we're angry about it because we're a social creature. There's nothing we can do about that. It's an automatic response. You're going to shake the bars and throw the cucumbers back. Just how it is. And this is what they are actually angry about because they're mad that this got exposed. And so we're seeing all the usual stuff. They're like, Elon and his team is going to end up with hungry children and they'll be starving Africans and they have terrible things. Your private data is going to get taken somehow. They're trying to find something that will resonate and get you off of understanding that you just saw that they had been feeding themselves entire bunches of grapes at your expense. And that's what they're angry about. They're angry that somebody exposed it. They're not angry at being caught. They're not ashamed of being caught. They're not like, wow, let me hide my face from public because I just got caught ripping off the American people. I just got caught being an absolutely untrustworthy human being within the American culture. They're not even slightly ashamed. They're just mad they got caught, right? Look at this. A lot of grapes here. Nancy Pelosi somehow, since 2013 to current, her strategy, if you followed her stock picking abilities, you would be up 777.81%, whereas the S&P, which is up an enormous 219.47%, Yeah, she's just that much better than the S&P index, right? She's got that much alpha. She's always right compared to the S&P. She's just that smart. No, this is corruption. It's unfair advantages. It's grapes. This is all grapes. And so Elon Musk and his team have been digging through this whole thing and found out, I mean, look at this. This is just soft money to push hard ideologies. The Federal Aviation Administration had a DEI contract for $45.18 million. And when they have that contract for $45.18 million, there's going to be a whole suite of people that look a lot like that Raj guy, right? They're just all these consultants, very nicely dressed. They went to Brown, they went to Harvard, they went to Yale, and they're going to come in and help them administer their DEI programs. And then next thing you know, hop, skip, and a jump, 45 million went from your pockets into their pockets, and that's the game. Or USAID, DEI scholarships in Burma. Hey, $45 million to make sure that Burma, of all places, is up the curve on the ideology that they want to push. Like, this is how you got ahead in this particular world of theirs. If you wanted to get ahead, you had to go out there and say, oh, I get it. It's we're all pushing DEI this week. Next week, it'll be Slava Ukraini. The week after that, it'll be, who knows? It doesn't matter as long as it keeps the corrupt gravy train going. And they get to push their ideologies, right? Department of Homeland Security had a DEI contract for $43.27 million. $40 million went to the New York Times for subscriptions. Department of Treasury had a DEI contract for another $35.89 million. A work order for digital modernization program office support. Don't know what that was. Associated Press, $20 million in subscriptions. More DEI contracts down the bottom of 2015 and call it $10 million. I don't even know what we're looking at. $300 million of contracts to enforce this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Again, it doesn't even matter. They don't actually care if the program's successful or not. They don't care about the outcomes of the program. That'd be like the board of advisors in San Francisco saying, let's make shoplifting limits, push those up to 950. And then they get more shoplifting and they don't sit down and go, well, that was stupid. We got the exact opposite of what we thought we wanted. We got more shoplifting, not less. Let's adjust. They don't do that. They'll just put more money in. If DEI doesn't seem to be working, they'll spend more money on it next year because this is how they roll, because they're not productive people. They're not serious people. They don't actually do things that you or I would say, you know what I really need this week? I got to go get me some of those Brown University educated DEI consultants. That's what I need this week. I need a lot more. You know what I'm going to get my wife for Christmas this year? She's going to love it. I'm going to get her a 3-hour consulting session with the FAA DEI team. I mean, like, nobody asks for this stuff in real life. Nobody wants it, right? Except for the people who are the grifters and the hangers-on and the people who are actually making a living off of pushing this nonsense, right? That's been the game. That's been the game. Okay, so this is actually, though, this level of, this is going to be hard. Because the people who were behind all of this were also the same people who were behind taking a shot at Trump. It's the same thing. There's a large, blobby, swampy group of people who somehow thought that this was okay to do. And so they tried it and they missed. And who knows what they're going to do next. But we're going to go into part 2 of this report, again, for my subscribers, because we got to talk about this very seriously. I think there's a lot of violence on the way. There's already been some early calls for that. We're seeing this whipping up. Where does this go? All of that. Hey, we got to talk about that. And as a community and a group, which is what we have at Peak Prosperity. And if you're not a member at Peak Prosperity, you really should be, because what you get is you get me 7 days a week, pretty much, watching the world, making sense of it, condensing it, distilling it to save you time, because you don't have time to look at all this stuff like I do. That's my job. And I will deliver it to you, and I'll give you context and thoughtfulness and all of that, and you will be able to make better decisions. And you'll find a community of people at Peak Prosperity just as smart, just as curious, just as dedicated to finding the truth as you are, so that we can maybe surf this avalanche of change and be on top of the avalanche when it stops moving. Help dig out a few people, begin the rebuilding process. That's the game right now. But if I'm right, these folks, these raccoons, these scoundrels, these corrupt grifters, they would just as soon burn this whole thing down so they'd have a chance of ruling over the ashes as they will of saying, actually, bigger chance of that than them ever saying, you know what, we just had this all wrong. Why don't we learn some real skills? We'll lean in and let's all do this together. They have no interest in that. They are violent and nasty, and their backs are up against the wall because they know if they're not administering DEI contracts, they might have to do some real work, and they're not down with that. That is totally not on the menu for them. So I think things could get really spicy from here on out, and we got to talk about all that. So that's for my subscribers back at Peak Prosperity. If you are one, fantastic. Come on back, and let's go to part 2 now.